bit under the weather, nothing too serious, but as of course those who have been watching us this week could tell, you know, Keaton and I both were a bit under the weather, so hopefully he will be well enough to join us back tomorrow. But have no fear, the good lady is here, and while we were hoping that we would have been able to go over this topic on Friday and then on Monday, and things never seem to have worked out, but we have her here today on Wednesday. Good morning, Karen. How are you going?
I'm going well. Please give my best regards to Keaton. And to you, I know you have been keeping up a very grueling schedule, because we know that one of your talents, which one day I hope you will share with your viewers and with me as a viewer too, your singing talents, which seem to be quite considerable. But that shows, yes, you can be shy about it. But
my singing days, Karen might be behind me. Who knows? Who knows?
Okay, but in any event, duty calls, and I know you're not, you know, you have your own challenges with your, you know, being a little bit challenged with all the schedules that you have been keeping, but you have kept your commitment to the station, and all the best for Keaton. Fortunately, I'm not on a Thursday, but I wish him all the best.
So, of course, the topic that I was alluding to is, I guess, one of the big topics of the day. You could argue crime is the major topic of the day, and while violent crime is neck and neck, white-collar crime and corruption, that is, I would argue, just as if not more important, as multiple times on this show, various analysts has said that is the underlying cause for our crime problem, as it erodes on our law and order. And this case, this corruption case that has been discontinued by the DPP against Mr. Ramdeen and Mr. Ramlogan has brought up a whole new host of questions with regards to, well, the cabinet's involvement, with regards to the AG and exactly what amount of authority did he have, or did he express, what was his involvement in this situation, as well as the whole nature of the indemnity deal to begin with, and if the government is even serious about going after corruption in the truest sense of the word, or if this was just a political witch hunt. So Karen, you are, of course, are the attorney at law. I am not the attorney at law. We've had conflicting claims on the situation from the former AG Faris Awari. We've had the Prime Minister basically say, well, this is not a concern of the cabinet, if to paraphrase. We've had Mr. Nelson himself, of course. He has made certain claims, he has made certain accusations, as well as we've had other people from the outside weighing in. First of all, with this case, what do you make of it? What was your first impression from the case itself?
Well, I will say my immediate impression was that it was a ball of confusion. It was needed to be unraveled. And I know from experience from being, of course, in cabinet and being in government, that not all things are going to come to light. And there are things that perhaps are in the background that one would not be privy to. But what I want to start, and it's sort of going backwards in a sense, but I think is important that I do say it, that I believe that the DPP has, he can't come out and say anything. He's under the Constitution, he's constitutionally insulated from any executive or any political pressures, and that is because it's understandable why that would be so, regardless of the administration. So I just want to say that my impression on that part of it is that the civil side of the matter, which is the indemnity agreement and all that went with it, definitely compromised his ability to have a trial that would end up in a criminal trial, which is the DPP's province, which is that of the state. I think he felt that enough damage had been done by the so-called indemnity agreement to which he was not a party to. If you read and guided by the reports, which makes sense also, I think when he spoke on and said that he was discontinuing, I think he was telegraphing as diplomatically as he could, that I've had to throw this matter out because the unsealing of the civil claim by Vincent Nelson for breach of the indemnity agreement, the claim of damages of 100 million for breach of the indemnity agreement would disclose so much evidence and so much that had been going on that it would, as he said, affect the very reliability and credibility of the state's main witness in a criminal proceedings. So I want to say that the DPP has been put in a very difficult position. I'm sure he cannot come out and say how he feels, but I suspect that he is a man seething with justifiable anger that the dealings and doings of the AG, former AG, have affected significantly his ability to secure a conviction against the former AG and former Senator Ramdeen. And that, I think, is where I would start that discussion, because I think we need to make a clear distinction between the office of the DPP and that of the Attorney General. And even if you look at the Constitution, it says that matters concerning criminal matters are brought by the state, not by the DPP, but by the state, because it's an offense against all of us. When there's corruption, when there's crime, we are all affected. So it's the state that brings those proceedings. When, however, it is a matter in the civil jurisdiction, that is the province of the Attorney General. And insofar as the Attorney General is a member of cabinet and therefore a member of the executive, it is improper for him to make any efforts to in some way bring the DPP into his arrangements with the indemnity agreement, which had nothing to do with the DPP. Of course, when he got the information in 2019, it gave him the ability. He had the notarized statement from Nelson. He had all the documents perhaps that he needed. And what he did do was, because he wanted Nelson to cooperate in the criminal proceedings, he did, as he is entitled to do, enter into a plea agreement. Not what the AG wants to do, it's what he does as DPP. And he made a plea agreement with him not to seek a custodial sentence, to drop one of the most serious offenses in exchange for him giving evidence in the criminal case against Ramdeen and Ram Logan. That's where his obligations started. And in fact, I think he received that information on the indemnity agreement, which apparently had been entered into since 2017, but not sent to him until I think January 2019. He immediately, after entering the plea agreement, which he was entitled so to do in order to get a conviction, it's done all over the world. I mean, that's, when you have a case and you need evidence. And he did charge Nelson, and Nelson was convicted, and he was fined 2.5 million, which I understand up to now has not been paid. And in failure to pay the fine, a bond to keep the peace, failing which 2 years hard labor in prison. So he did what he was supposed to do. He also charged both Ramdeen and Ram Logan, I think by, March, April of that same year, with misbehaving in public office, collusion, conspiracy. So he did his part. And, this whole other part with the Attorney General, I think it compromised what he was doing. And I will stop now to allow you to ask me any questions, but I do have the letters from passing between the AG and the DPP as evidence of the efforts by the AG to wrongly attempt to bring the DPP into this into the confusion that he had created with the indemnity agreement.
Well, Karen, that is actually one of the questions. I don't know to what extent you are able to answer it, because, as I said, we have competing claims. But the long and short is, it seems as though, are you with us still? Seems that we might have had our communications with Karen interrupted there for a second. I was now looking to seek to ask her opinion with regards to what extent, who does she believe? Does she believe the AG's claims that he was not involved or not deeply involved, as we have seen, well, sorry, the former AG, this is Faris Hawari, as we have seen that there have been an attempt to defend the proceedings and trying to make it soften the blow and saying that it was, well, under advisement that the deal was negotiated. First, Faris Hawari did go live, well, he had a press conference live and he did say that senior counsel did the negotiations with Mr. Nelson for the indemnity deal. Then I do believe that recently, as of yesterday or the day before, there was also a report where it was stated that the DPP was the person that was taking point on the matter as opposed to the AG, whereas we have heard accounts that the former AG, Faris Hawari, was the one pushing this through. And apparently, both with regards to trying to get the DPP to take up this stratagem, as well as reports that Mr. Nelson himself stating that Mr. Hawari, that is to say, the Minister of Local Government, who was then Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs at the time, was trying to push this indemnity deal on Mr. Nelson to push this investigation through. So hopefully we'll get Karen there, because she just literally said that she had the letters that I believe was correspondence between Mr. Hawari and the DPP at the time. It's very important again to note that the DPP is supposed to be, well, independent. And this case, similar to the situation with the Police Service Commission, might now look to have us ask more questions with regards to the chain of command, with regards to the reporting structure, with regards to the independence of certain institutions that were, for better or worse, set up to be independent from cabinet, from the executive. Because technically, in theory, we do have to realize that while one could argue that positions like the Commissioner of Police and the Director of Public Prosecutions, they affect crime in the country, and that could affect the sitting government. So you could see where there's the temptation to say, well, they have to report to the politicians because their work or lack thereof could undermine the politicians' administration. The flip side to that is, if there is any sort of wrongdoing by any politician, government, opposition, what have you, these are the people who are supposed to be investigating those cases. And I can hear now that Karen is back. Karen.
Yes, but I'm not seeing, I'm seeing myself at the top of the screen, but anyhow, go ahead.
Well, I was now explaining to the people the importance of independence, the DPP, if there was any criminal case against a sitting member of the government bench, would technically need independence to investigate them. To corroborate what you said, you now said that you had correspondence. So I was outlining the question for the public, but the long and short is, was the AG really the person that took point in this matter, or was it the DPP? Because the former AG, because we have heard now, whether from his press conference or in articles in the press, that it said that other people had the hands-on with regards to the situation, whether it was negotiating a deal. We heard it was senior counsel Mendez, I think, Mr. Hawari said was the one who was responsible for negotiating a deal. And then in the papers, either yesterday or the day before, that the DPP was the person. Mr. Hawari has said the DPP chose to prosecute, the DPP chose to do this, he was involved with that. Who was the person that really pushed us through? Was it the DPP or was it the former AG?
Well, I don't know about pushing it through. They're two separate things. There's the civil proceedings and there's the criminal proceedings. Now, clearly, the DPP, apparently this agreement had been entered into since November 2017. If the DPP knew of it, he certainly was not formally apprised of it, and he certainly was not given the documents based on what he has said, and I have no reason to doubt his veracity. What I do know is that once he got the documents, which were included the indemnity agreement, which he just would, well, that's good for him to know, but that has nothing to do with him. You know, that he's not making any promises. His is a plea agreement. His is not an indemnity agreement. That indemnity agreement is solely in the province of the Attorney General. He has nothing to do with that. He is dealing with a plea agreement, and his plea agreement was that he would not seek a custodial sentence against Mr. Nelson in exchange for him giving evidence, because he was critical to the case, against Ram Logan and Ram Dean. And he followed through with that by being charged. Mr. Nelson was charged in March 2020, I think. He was fined 2.5 million, as I said, and both Ram Dean and Ram Logan were charged. But that is consistent with the agreement that he made under the plea agreement under which he's entitled to make. The indemnity agreement is not part of his portfolio. But what happened, and what I think, in my respectful opinion, it's one of the things that, in my view, was that the then Attorney General, Faraz Al-Rawi, was so keen and so anxious to bring home a trophy, so to speak, in the form of the former Attorney General, Anand Ram Logan, and to have that under his belt to show his ability to deal with the corrupt forces, not to say they don't appear in every form and fashion on both sides of the equation, but certainly Anand Ram Logan was a good low-hanging fruit because of Vincent Nelson. And I think in his anxiety to do that, he made a lot of missteps. One of the things he did, from what I've read, is since 2016, for example, he said that he would not attempt to recover I think it's $40 million that he had received by the former Attorney General for work done for the AG's department. There would be no effort to recover that money. He also agreed that there were outstanding fees owed to him, which amounted to, I think, $10 million, 1 million and something pounds, which he paid him. And this is all, and that's the AG. Keep them separate, keep them apart. That's what the Constitution intends. And then as the matter progressed, while the AG was doing his part, the Attorney General was doing his thing. And what appears to me is that at a point in time, a number of the matters that fell within the indemnity agreement, and this is what Vincent Nelson is using. He's a skillful man. He's a QC, a KC. He can't practice because he can't get the certificate that allows you to practice annually. So he's not been able to get that. It's affected him. He's been thrown out of his own chambers. So he is saying that the breach of the indemnity agreement was on the basis of him entering into that indemnity agreement was that he was going to give evidence in the civil matter. The plea agreement was that he was going to give evidence based on the plea agreement with the DPP. But it is because of what transpired on the AG side that it impacted the ability of the DPP to go forward. He has as much as said that. He said that the reliability and credibility of the main witness for the prosecution has been so damaged by, one, Vincent playing it smart. You know, he's a QC himself. He's saying, okay, I'm going to sue you for breach of the damages of breach of the indemnity agreement. And by doing that, of course, all kinds of evidence, all kinds of witness statements, all kinds of annexations and exhibits would come out. So we would get a fuller picture of what was happening behind the scenes, because that action was sealed. And he's saying he never wanted it sealed, as the AG wanted it sealed. But in any event, they applied to have it unsealed. And when it has been unsealed, it has been, from what has been stated in the newspapers thus far, and what the DPP has indicated, is that unsealing of that record and that breach of indemnity agreement, whether he's successful or not, has done so much damage to his key witnesses' reliability in his proceedings in the criminal courts that he does not feel that he can go forward. Also, too, he has said, Vincent Nelson has said, that he is not going to give any evidence at all in any matter until his breach of the indemnity agreement is settled, and he's claiming $100 million.
Well, Karen, I want to stick up in there. I want to take a break.
Okay.
When we come back,
Okay.
I mean, there are a lot of things. I want your opinion with regards to now moving forward from this, because there's both what happens to Mr. Nelson, but what also happens to the actual corruption case against Mr. Ramlogan and Mr. Ramdeep.
Well, I've said it, and I think I will want to refer to some of the letters.
Well, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get Karen's thoughts on this, as well as some other things. The discussion will continue here on Talking Point on your content capital, WESN. We'll be right back.
Delivered nationwide. Kiss enriched bread.
Fill your day with love.
It's Diwali time again. Come to Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan for all your Diwali essentials. Get your clay diyas, cotton wicks, floating wicks, beautifully decorated imported diyas. And now in stock, our long-lasting, easy-lighting wax diyas. Fasting? We have frozen vegetarian meals, exciting Indian spices and grocery items, decorated mithai boxes, prasad bags, freshly ground elaichi powder, and paper sohari leaves. And don't forget our popular, tasty, mouth-watering mithai. We have simple Diwali Puja guides on CD with a Puja handout, and our helpful staff will assist you with all the required ingredients to perform your Diwali Puja. Get great deals on lantern decorations, electric diya string lights, and Happy Diwali decorations. Visit us at the corner of Watt Street, Kirep, or at St. Ives Street, Chaguanas, opposite the Charleville taxi stand, or call 663-6084. Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan. It's a family tradition, serving the nation and Dharma. Lakshmi Mata's divine blessings to all. For your convenience, both branches are open on Sundays until Diwali.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you do now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Good day. Welcome back to Talking Points. And of course, we have with us the good lady, Karen Shishera, former Minister of Finance, but also attorney at law. And just to remind people, they might have forgotten, but it seems as though just about every politician with a law degree could more or less trace their education back to Karen Shishera, which is why we value her legal expertise as much as we value her political commentary on the show. So Karen, you have some correspondence, I believe, that could give some insight into this matter further. Right. And then I'll have a couple of questions I want to ask, but there were some things that you wanted to, some highlights you wanted to read out for the audience.
Right, so I wanted to bring clarity to the distinction between the plea agreement with the DPP, which is a separate entity, and that of the indemnity agreement with the Attorney General. You understand that under the Constitution, the executive cannot influence, is constitutionally insulated as a DPP, because if it were not so, the executive could tell him who to prosecute, who not to prosecute, who to discontinue. So that's the general thing. So what I wanted to make clear is I said what the plea agreement was, which the DPP entered into. Meanwhile, the AG had entered into some indemnity agreement, which included getting a presidential pardon after his claim was completed, that all costs would be borne by the government of Trinidad and Tobago in respect of any legal proceedings brought against him, that they would not disclose these proceedings to the UK National Criminal Agency, and that he would recommend to the AG, to the DPP, he could only, which is all wrong in any case, to recommend to the DPP that he not seek a non-custodial sentence. But to just get it into context, why I am saying what I'm saying, it appears on November the 23rd, 2020, the lawyers for Nelson wrote to the DPP, to the Attorney General, claiming that fees had not been paid and there were fees outstanding. And they were saying that this was promised, that they have not paid it in accordance with the indemnity agreement. So then the Attorney General, improperly in my view, wrote to the DPP as if he wished to bring him into this matter. And he even said, I am mindful of any allegation of undue influence, and as such, I bring the said correspondence to your urgent attention and for your consideration and advice. What is he doing bringing in the DPP in his matter? And of course, the DPP immediately responded, well, on December 16th said, respectfully, I decline to proffer any advice to you in this matter, since the handling of same and its potential progenies, I may mispronounce it, falls entirely within your purview and that of your legal advisors. Further, it is my considered opinion that it would be improper for my office to associate itself with this development. Then the BCI, acting on behalf of Nelson, again wrote to Al Rawi and claiming that, listen, you haven't settled fees, so we're going to go for debt recovery against Vincent Nelson. And by the way, now that you have breached the indemnity agreement, don't be surprised he brings action for damages for breach of the indemnity agreement. Well, you know what Al Rawi does? Al Rawi writes to the DPP again, trying to involve him in the matter. He says, I am of the view that the settlement of the same is arguably falls under the ambit of the said indemnity agreement. Signed by Mr. Nelson's QC attorneys. I will however not proceed to treat with this matter without ascertaining your position in relation to same. He talked about the fact that he knows that he could go for trial, but he is considering going for arbitration. And this is what he ends with saying, I hold that justice must not only be done, but also must be seen to be done. And I'm not necessarily against investigation and determination of this matter by way of arbitration, subject entirely to your and senior counsel for the Attorney General views and advice respectively on the matter. This is what he's writing to the DPP, and the DPP wrote him back, this is the last letter, wrote him on December 23rd. He said to Mr. Vincent Nelson, is indeed, this is what he said, quote, Mr. Vincent Nelson QC is indeed a potentially critical witness for the state, meaning the prosecution of the matter. Nonetheless, permit me to reiterate that my office, as the office of the DPP, is loath to involve itself in any manner or form with any indemnity agreement and its corollaries. Respectively, those fall outside my purview. So every time that the Attorney General tried to pull him in just as how he sunk, I did not advise myself. Clients instruct their attorneys. They act on the client's instructions. And while you mentioned Mendes, it's also Gilbert Peterson. And I'm pretty confident, though they will not say anything, I understand why, that they probably warned the then Attorney General that the indemnity agreement had provisions that simply were unenforceable. But they probably made notes on that and said that they told him, but he got instruction. And if he insisted that it had to be put in indemnity agreement, it was put. But what I want to make very, very clear is the DPP was doing his job with his plea agreement. Meanwhile, unknowns to him between 2017, or maybe it was informally known to him, that the Attorney General was entered into some sort of agreement in the civil arena. But because of his actions there, and then trying to bring him in, I just read it to you, trying to bring in the DPP into the kerfuffle so that he can now say, I did not advise myself. I was also advised by senior counsel, and the DPP also assisted in it. And the DPP smelt a rat. He's an experienced man, and what he did is to protect himself. He said, no. I have nothing to do with your agreement, you know. You made that agreement. But the upshot of that is that Vincent Nelson, being the smart attorney, unfortunately smart in all kinds of ways, then said, well, you breached the indemnity agreement. You had the National Criminal Association, whatever it's called in the US, in the UK. They now know about his notarized statement. I could be charged with bribery under the Act. I know my practice is completely collapsed. My chambers has thrown me out. And all the monies that I could have made in practice, which I used to make every year, have gone down the toilet. I can't do anything now. And now you've breached it, so I am not bound by your agreement. And obviously, there are things in that breach, in that action that he started in June, which would be embarrassing to the government, and which, when with the disclosure now, he said, let us unseal the whole thing, because I never asked for it to be sealed. I am confident that it disclosed so many things that showed that Vincent Nelson was not reliable, he was not credible, and it probably did not reflect well on the government. And it had put the DPP in a position where if he says he's not giving evidence because they breached the indemnity agreement, and if this disclosure of the breach of the indemnity agreement is so effective that it shows, hey, what, you're going to rely on this man in your criminal proceedings? Anybody, that's credibility and reliability of your main witness gone down, you know, and being so impacted. So he said he had to discontinue, and that is how I understand it. So just to make it clear to people, the DPP is constitutionally protected from executive interference. The DPP entered into a plea agreement, which he was entitled to do, and all the parties were charged as he followed through once he got the information from the AG's department to proceed. The indemnity agreement is the work of the Attorney General's department, for which Nelson is suing them for breach of that agreement, which would then undisclose matters perhaps that they do not wish the public to know. I'm going to have to close the window there, because I don't know why when I am having interviews they decide that they must mow the lawn right under my apartment. Let me just close it.
Well, hold on a second, Karen.
You're hearing me? Is that affecting you?
It's not affecting us. I'm not hearing
Okay, go ahead.
So I'll just want to ask quick, because we're almost out of time for this topic. With regards to Mr. Nelson, since he's not given any evidence, what happens to both the plea deal and the indemnity agreement? Does he continue to benefit from them, or will benefits be withdrawn? Will he be prosecuted any further? Or?
Well, don't use the word prosecuted, is the DPP and criminal investigation.
Right.
AG is civil and compensation. So the fact of the matter is that given the terms of the indemnity agreement, which you said all costs would be covered, I would be protected against etc., etc., etc. Even if some of the terms were unenforceable, some of them were enforceable because he took it upon himself to make those, include those terms in the indemnity agreement, and that the government had to have known that. So does he have a chance of winning? Maybe he does. Does it mean that it's going to disclose a lot of things that they perhaps didn't wish to be disclosed? then maybe it will, and that's what he knows. I believe that's what he knows.
And then now, of course.
So the bottom line is this. The bottom line, to answer your question, the DPP feels it cannot proceed because of the fact that until the civil claim is settled, which is another hundreds of years from now, and that the unreliability and credibility of his star witness is now being exposed because of this civil action, I believe the DPP's hands are being tied. When it comes to the civil matter, I don't know what a success will be, but if there's an indemnity agreement and it was signed by the parties, well, he may have success because it will be breached.
Well, you more or less answered my second question, and that would have been the actual criminal matter, despite the fact that the current AG has said that he wants to continue the matter. That, of course, is up to the DPP. And as you said, it's discontinued. He's waiting for this other situation to be resolved, unfortunately. Meanwhile, I don't know, maybe anticipating this, or maybe as this unfolded, this might have been one of the reasons why Mr. Awari is no longer the Attorney General.
Can I just say quickly,
yes.
the DPP did say so in the court, Maria Busby, the Chief Magistrate. He said that the indemnity agreement, by his disclosure and the breach of the agreement, which is being brought for damages by Vincent Nelson, will disclose the unreliability and credibility of his main witness. And that is why I want that to be the key thing. Yes. The reliability and credibility of the main witness will be so tarnished that he believes that that his case would be compromised severely.
Well, Karen, I mean, I said it yesterday, and I've alluded to it in the past. The government shot themselves in the foot. They shot themselves in the foot on this one bad.
And it's anxiety to bring home
And
anxiety.
you're not the first person to either say that or allude to that I've spoken to. So, folks, I want to support what Karen is saying. I have thought it, and I have had other commentators, analysts, and experts also come to that conclusion. And if we are wrong, all we will say is we ask the government to be more transparent and disclose more information.
It's sad though, Sean, because I think they had a good case against Ramlugan and Ramdeen,
and we will never know.
To bring home the bacon.
We will
made so many missteps.
We will never know, and to some extent, they will never be cleared. So it's bad either way. Either way you look at it, it's bad. Okay, we have to take a break. When we come back, we want to get into that little old thing that Karen has stepped her toe into, dived into, has decided to touch on. I actually got some news that some of the other people running for other positions have actually withdrawn their names. We'll get into that when we return from this break on Talking Point. This is your Content Capital, WESN. We'll be right back.
Perfection doesn't happen by chance. Like an artist, the cook selects the main ingredient, one that is worthy of a proud cultural tradition. Trusted to enhance your creations with its richness and versatility. To create a cooking masterpiece, the secret is simple. The brand we know, the brand we trust, the brand our ancestors have been using for generations.
There is only one pure cow brand ghee. Look for the marks of authenticity.
It's Diwali time again, and that means delicious vegetarian cuisine. Chief has all your herbs and spices for Diwali. Curry, jeera, saffron, garam masala, and more for all your tal curry. Cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, ginger, and cardamom for those delectable sweets. Brown rice, dal, and chana for those tasty delicacies. And of course, Chief baking powder for soft and light roti. This Diwali, remember, the Chief reason is always taste.
My mom has been shopping here for the last 15 years. So coming here with her, now I have my own family.
The variety of items, cleanliness of the place, the spaciousness.
My favorite section is household.
My husband loves the hardware section and the auto section. My favorite would be stationery.
Price Club is the low price leading supermarket in TNT.
They are the best. I would recommend Price Club to anybody.
with society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Diwali is in the air again, and Royal Castle reminds you to try its yummy veggie burger. The Royal Castle veggie burger is great on its own or in a combo with a side and a 16-ounce drink. And it's healthy too. A nutritious patty made with oats, lentils, chana, potatoes, and carrot inside a soft bun with tomatoes and lettuce. So for this season, try the Castle's tasty and healthy veggie burger. Shubh Diwali from Royal Castle.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Talking Point. I did not make the same mistake twice. So of course now we shift gears to the internal elections, because the good lady herself has become, a bit more of a high-profile figure ever since she announced her intention to run for political leader. A very challenging, difficult, and that's to put it politely. We've had the more brutally honest ways to put it. The Prime Minister has tried to play it off, as you could say. But technically, you're not the only person challenging, not just for political leader, but also for other positions in the internal elections. But I believe you are right now the most high-profile one. Whether or not that is to your favor, we will see. But speaking of the internal elections, I believe that you have some questions with regards to the process, with regards to how it's being done. You've voiced some of it already. And you have some further issues with regards to this upcoming event?
Yeah, I want to start by saying there are two posts that three actually, but I think two critical posts that we are putting our hats in the political ring. I don't look at it as, I don't like to use the word challenge and contesting. I prefer not to, because it's the same party. And that's the chairmanship, Ken Butcher, and myself as party leader, because we understand those are the critical posts within the leadership of the party. So these are that. Secondly, with regard to matters that we brought to the forefront, we want to make it clear that we respect the position of the Prime Minister. He is the Prime Minister. But if the whole process of transitioning to Prime Minister to be national governance to a party position, if the foundation is at risk of falling apart or having cracks and fissures, which are clear, based not on just my opinion, but on what you're reading in the papers, the disconnect, the statements like the cold pot, the macaroni and ham, I could give you all the bicycle and all those other insensitive, disconnected statements. It says to you that the party leadership and the government in somehow is not reflecting what the party should be about. And that is one of our concerns. So it's definitely not there to, our view is that we want to restore, if there's any loss of confidence in the party, we want to encourage other persons to join the party. And we want them to see that if we were to transition from the party leadership, because we're not a football club, we're not a sports club, we are there obviously seeking to form the next government of the country. And the starting point has to be within the party, so people can judge, hopefully, what to expect from that party once it is in government. So just to make it very clear that we believe that there are issues with regard to the foundation of the party, as you see played out in the public domain, and we want to come in and hopefully make some changes as accountability. So I think what you asked me, about the internal election. And that's a good example of where a starting point, because let me just say my lawyers they are handling it, and it's certainly not in an adversarial manner. In fact, it is hopefully trying to bring the much needed transparency, which is always what a government, and confidence, which is always what a government needs to have. And where the concerns have arisen, firstly, I wrote an open letter to the Anthony Roberts, who I like very much. It's nothing personal at all with all of that. But I thought that way I would get a response, and I did get a response promptly. The concerns, one, is why spread out the election effectively over 9 days? Because you have the first 2 days in November, and then there's a hiatus to the 4th of December. So effectively you have spread it out. And I think there's Article 18, but my lawyers are looking at that, even though I am a lawyer, but sometimes you have to separate yourself, that it speaks about an election day. And for good reason. We don't have national elections spread out over days. We do it on one day. And why have you added this complexity that all brings up questions that are not good as to transparency and, you know, why are you doing that? And the other thing that, of course, comes out of that is the ballot boxes. When the Election and Boundaries Commissions, and it's the same principle, when they conduct an elections, they're not supposed to take a position one way or the other about who to win or who not to win. But what their duty is to make sure that the election process is not compromised or there's a lack of integrity. So what happens to those boxes and where those boxes being kept? Because it seems that the persons who will have access, or not say access, have custody of the boxes will be the person who have a vested interest, unlike the EBC, which is an independent body. So you must question why you're stretching it out, where those boxes being kept, who has access to, who has custody of the boxes, especially when there are persons who have an interest in the outcome of the elections. And then thirdly, which comes to the question of us building up transparency and confidence. I mean, so many people ask me, they want to vote, where can they register? And, you know, even having, I won't call the name of the person because I have a lot of respect for him. But when I asked, what is the date, closing date, he himself didn't know. And to find out that they told the constituencies that the 23rd of August. So everybody after the 23rd of August cannot vote in this election. Now, is that right that people didn't know that? Or is it a closed shop? Do you not want other people to come to join the party so in the national elections you have built up a good base? And that, I mean, that in itself, that I didn't even know. And even people who are active in the party saying they didn't even know it closed off on the 23rd of August. So anybody after the 23rd of August cannot participate in the voting. The last point is this. We have been asking for the preliminary voter list of registrants. They have it. So they have an advantage over, and I don't know who else they may have given it to, right? But we have been asking for it. We have been given the undertaking by Mr. Roberts that one, they will explain how the votes will, how the boxes will be secured. And then secondly, we were promised by the chairman, the current chairman, that we would get the preliminary list by Thursday. We shall see. But the last point that concerns me is that it's a preliminary list. So the preliminary list goes to Bally's House. What are the factors, and because we talk about transparency, what are the factors that are taken into account to determine who or who will not make it on the final list? How you determine that? I mean, and it's being handled by persons who, let us be fair, who are not objectively removed from the process. So all of those things are, to me, as going up for leadership, are things that we need to address. And so build up that confidence and trust that the national community should have, so that when we are facing our national elections, that they say, you see the PNF, they have been transparent, they've been open, they have been whatever that is required, and that we don't have to find ourselves building up a foundation that, by the way, has been totally broken down. Maybe they had a premonition that the foundation was in such a bad condition. I have my views on that, but the point is the foundation, as it was, needed to be restored, and that's what we're about.
Well, and just to support that, I'll put up the example for the last two American elections, not for the elections themselves, but the selection of the Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton, I believe in 2016, or whichever year that was, a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters felt as though the party just pushed him to the side in order to make sure Hillary was the nominee. And then in the latest election, Joe Biden, a lot of people who wanted more of an outsider, newer candidate like Andrew Yang, like Tulsi Gabbard, they believed that no, the party wanted Joe Biden. They wanted that national popular person to win elections. The reason why that matters is the people who wanted somebody new, somebody with different ideas, with a different energy to the corporate political party, corporate sponsor type, they were disenfranchised and the party potentially lost supporters because they didn't want to go with the eventual nominee. And also, they potentially lost supporters because there was a lack of trust or a loss of trust in the process and the system. And those two examples there are more or less what you're saying. The PNM now, if it looks as though that they're just trying to, for lack of a better word, to game the system, to rig the system, to just, in whatever, it could be very minor, it doesn't matter. It could be non-existent, but the window of perception is open and accusations could be made, not from outsiders with an axe to grind, but by insiders who were potentially looking for change, some sort of change. And when they see business as usual and they think, wait a second, this happened a little too easily. If it was a fight to the finish, then fine. But wait a second, why is this so easily we just reverting back to the norm when there's some sort of outcry for change, and that could affect not just the party's election prospects, as we saw at Hillary Clinton's, right? Look who she lost to. So never say never. Never say never that the perception of your party cannot hamper what could, on paper, look like a reasonable candidate to even a very strong candidate. But also the implications with regards to the party and the long-term health of the party's membership and voters. And I'll always say this for UNC supporters, it's not about winning because the other side collapses, because you're going to collapse too, and vice versa. That's why we hard on the opposition and we want them to do a good job, because we don't want the PNM to be complacent. However, it seems as though that the opposition is doing a bad job and the PNM is becoming very, very complacent. Karen, I will leave you the last thoughts.
Yes, I think what you said really sums it up. And the point about it is, everybody is talking about change. We know that is what is the cry. And we have to start the change from within the party, because as I said, we're not a football club. We're not, we are going to seek national governance, and then the change has to start from within. And people have to see change, real change. I think a lot of people are disenchanted, disillusioned, and we want to bring that way of hope, that belief that we are in it for the right reasons, and that hopefully at the end of the day that we will restore whatever lost ground we have gotten over the example that I've given you with let them eat cake, with the insensitivity of the comments. So we are not against the Prime Minister. In fact, we are hoping that what we are setting out to do will restore any lost confidence and belief in what the party stands for. And that is our aim and objective. And it will then take us into governance in the next national elections.
Well, folks, it might be a bit too late to involve yourself in the internal process, but I would advise, take this lesson to heart. Don't just wait for the general. Find a party who hopefully you could find some values that you believe in, but then don't take it for granted. Be a part of the internal process so that when the general comes, you can't complain that the people for both sides, I don't like either of them, so I'm not voting. Don't take that cop out. Be involved. Now, Karen, I want to thank you just to say for involving yourself in the biggest way. Hopefully you don't come out wasteful wear from the other side, but taking the biggest steps. But if I would just like to encourage our viewers to encourage their friends and family, they don't have to go as far as Karen did. but, just involve themselves a little bit more. But we have to break for news on the hour here on WESN. When we return, we'll open up the phone lines. I'm sure that our callers will have a lot of questions for the good lady of Talking Points, but we have to wait for that when we return on WESN, your content capital.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Sinclair. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Man charged with assault. EMA cautions THA on construction. THA Chief Secretary assures there is no threat to the environment. And internationally, Florida flesh-eating illness cases spike after hurricane. Now for the details. A 41-year-old man is due to reappear at the Princestown Magistrates Court on Thursday after he was remanded into custody last week when he appeared before a magistrate on a charge of assault. The accused of Lady Hales Avenue, San Fernando, was charged with breach of protection order, common assault, and malicious wounding. According to reports, around 9:25 a.m. on July 3rd, a woman was seated at the front of her home when she was approached by her ex-common-law husband. The man then allegedly injured the woman on her abdomen with a knife, then allegedly placed the knife on the woman's throat. The matter was investigated by officers of the Gender-Based Violence Unit and the man arrested. The THA did not receive the necessary environmental clearance from the Environmental Management Authority for the construction of a stage on the seafront in Scarborough. The EMA is concerned about the infrastructure works in Tobago. In a release, the EMA says the works are being undertaken without the requisite certificates of environment clearance. The EMA reminds all that the CEC process is a mandatory requirement by law to assess the potential impacts of proposed activities on human health and the environment. The assessment allows for the mitigation measures to minimize negative impacts. Meanwhile, the THA Chief Secretary, Farley Augustine, says the structure will have no negative impact on the environment.
Environmental impact is little to none there. In fact, some of that same kind of work had to be done where the esplanade is right now. In fact, that is what it makes up the esplanade. So essentially what will happen is that there will be a permanent fixture there that is environmentally safe, that is as an attachment to the public infrastructure, road infrastructure along that way.
In international news now, the Florida county that was devastated by Hurricane Ian last month has seen a surge in cases of flesh-eating bacteria illnesses and death. Officials say Lee County, where the Category 4 storm made landfall on September 28th, has reported 29 illnesses and 4 deaths owing to the bacteria. All but 2 cases were diagnosed after the hurricane. Well, that was news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Sinclair. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, we only spoke about 2 topics today. For those who might have been wishing for us to speak on other topics, have no fear. This is where we open up the phone lines. You could ask the questions. You could bring up the topics that you want to hear about. We'll speak about them. No problem with that. If you have any specific questions about what we spoke about or to the good lady herself, you could bring that up too. We are not hiding anything here. The phone lines are open, ladies and gentlemen. I advise you to try to call in as soon as possible, because these days we have been getting phone calls fast and furious. But we will leave that up to you, Karen. I mean, at the end of the day, as we wait for the calls to come in, the situation, I just want to now, as we have a few minutes, crime in the country. Your take on it. Do you think that it's more or less reaching a new low? I don't want to say high, but the whole situation, or the level of violence that we've seen recently, within the last month, I think for someone like me who used to read up on, follow and track crime stories on a daily basis, even I am somewhat taken aback by where we have come.
Okay, so one of the things that makes it more outstanding is because we had 2 years of COVID, which is operated in effect as a kind of state of emergency in terms of people's ability to move around. So you did get this big drop in the crime numbers, and especially murder, which is what people tend to focus on. So this big uptick really probably is a result of comparing what was the position in the 2 years previously. But I think what has happened now is the boldness in with which the crimes are being committed and the murders are committed, the type of guns and the, ARVs, I don't know the language, but I know it can splatter, that they have access to this type of ammunition. And the way it is done in a very, very methodical, professional way among these young men who seem to be fearless, it has created a new level of criminality in the country. And also going with that, which is why the state, let me just say, that's why the state prosecutes matters, because we as members of the community become afraid. People tell me every day they're afraid to leave their house after 7 in the evening. Not necessarily because they're going to be murdered, but they're going to be held up. They're going to be raped. They're going to be their cars stolen. Okay. So the level of crime has gone way out of hand.
So we have callers. We have one caller from Port of Spain. Good morning, caller. Mr. Port of Spain, you're on the air.
Good morning. Good morning to you, Mr. Small, and good morning to you, Mrs. Nunez.
Yes.
I got it right.
Yes, you did. You did.
First of all, I really want to congratulate Mrs. Nunez Teixeira.
Please call me Karen. You need too many words.
No, on this occasion, I'm preparing for when you're the Prime Minister. I must congratulate you on doing what I think hundreds within the PNM they could have done, but they have not done so because they lack cojones, they lack the will to bring about democratic change, they lack the will to instill in the party and in the minds of those who sit in office that they are not God's children, but all of us are God's children, and all of us have a right under the democratic process to offer ourselves for service in the best interests of the people. At this time, people may not recognize what you're doing, but you are really offering yourself for service in the first instance, in the best interest of the people of the party. But by extension, you are doing what you must to re-engineer the politics of the country, to re-engineer the politics of the party, and thereby grow the democracy. If you don't do what you're doing today, Haiti is staring this country in its face. Or a scenario where you have somebody emerging like Donald Trump somewhere, and deciding he is going to hold the office at all costs, and that he will destroy all comers who decide to disagree with him or her. And so I want to really congratulate you and say to you, I endorse Mrs. Karen Nunes Teixeira in this internal election within the PNM. I really support your candidacy.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you very much, and I don't know what I could add to that. But I think you summed up my intentions. Yes.
We have a caller from San Fernando. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Am I on air?
Yes, you're on air.
But someone is speaking on TV now.
No. Lower the volume on your TV. There's a delay.
Oh, okay. Good morning to you. First of all, I would like to wish Mrs. Nunes Teixeira all the best. I will not really delve into what was said because it was adequately dealt with previously. Once again, all the best to you, my dear. I want to find out something. I was listening to the show, of course, and you make references made that the Balize house was the structure has been compromised. Are we talking figuratively or are we talking literally? That's the first thing. I'll put down the phone after you can reply. The second thing, not being a legal-minded person, there is two aspects to the Alwari fiasco. One of which is some civil proceedings, and the other one is criminal proceedings. As I said, I'm not a legal-minded person. As I could gather, the civil proceedings is the case with Alwari buying over Nelson and the custodial sentence was lifted and the $2.3 million fined. What is the criminal proceedings? Is it the case that has fallen down between Messrs. Ram Logan and Ramdeen? Basically, that is it. So I'll put on the phone and I'll listen to you on the TV. Thanks very much, and you will keep up the very good work, Mike. Bye-bye.
Yes. Okay, just to be clear, there are two separate agreements, the plea agreement and the indemnity agreement. With regard to the $2.5 million fine and non-custodial sentence, that is something that the DPP came to which he can with Nelson in order to secure him as a witness against Ramdeen and Ram Lugan, and he was charged. And sometimes they say they take the death sentence, the American choose, they take the death penalty off the table, and they would look for life sentence. It is equivalent to that. So they're two separate entities, two separate agreements. He was not party to the indemnity agreement. That is completely within the province of the Attorney General. What it did do is impact negatively his ability to get Nelson not only to be a witness, but be a credible witness because of all that has transpired through that indemnity agreement. I don't know if that answers you, but they're two separate things. I mean, that's what the DPP arranged with that plea agreement, and all of them were charged.
So right now, the only criminal matter right now is technically the discontinued case with Ram Logan and Ramdeen, whereas there was potential civil matters that involved Nelson directly.
Right. With the Attorney General's Department.
And then with regards to the Balize House question, he asked if it was figuratively or literally. Because now that in itself is a difficult semantic question, because you could say that the structure itself is kind of literally, maybe you could see signs of it starting to crack.
Okay, so let me just answer as quickly as I can. I meant it figuratively and literally. Figuratively, from the point of view, it's called Balize House, and any house has to have a good foundation. So from the point of view that as going up as the party political leader, we understand that the figuratively, any house that does not have a strong foundation will collapse on itself. So that was the figurative looking at the matter. When it is literally, well, I mean, it's been broken down completely. And that is very sad, because I've always felt and I've always admired the Prime Minister for his restoration of our historical buildings. And whether it is the President's House, Tolmeyer's Castle, Meal Fleur, the Red House, and for him to completely knock down into a complete obliteration the Balize House, the home of the PNM party, seen more of a vanity project because of his own alignment with historic buildings. And it certainly seems from my sense of being, looking at it, he said perhaps he knew that the foundation was that bad. But of course, I was not being serious about that. What I was really saying is that it's unfortunate that he has done that, but maybe he wanted to leave his own mark, and that was his way of doing it. I'm not quite sure where he's getting the funding from.
That is a whole other big question that, I don't know myself. Is that smoke to say that there's fire? I don't even know that. That's an interesting...
that looks like $50 million at least. And maybe that's why there's a self-serving thing, because you don't want people like myself, who you all ask for change. You all want change. You all say you don't want this and X, Y, and Z, but we're getting an opportunity to put it into effect. Well, we got it for the good of the country. So maybe that will give me an opportunity to find out where that money is coming from.
That's an interesting point. Folks, the phone lines are open. Please don't be distracted by the discussion. Call in with your questions. But while I have the chance, that's an interesting point. One of the things that enforces or reinforces corruption is the fact that in order to keep things hidden, getting change or allowing change to happen naturally is something that a lot of various political entities around the world are very reluctant to let happen. And ironically, that's probably one of the biggest factors to keep certain dictatorships or certain less than ethical practices going. You don't want an outsider coming in and potentially discovering these things and asking questions, especially on somebody who, for all intents and purposes, have been asking those questions on national television for the last couple of years. So you don't expect...
And I have to add, without the problem with me, and I hope people understand that, it's a good thing, but you have to make the determination as the members of the party. I don't have any cocoa in the sun. There's nobody coming to tell me they gave me X and gave me Y, and I had to do this and do that. There's nobody like that. There's nobody.
And back to my example.
That makes me, I think, a matter of concern.
Back to my examples. The election that we probably follow the most here in TNT, besides our own, might be the American election and the UK election. In the American election, candidates like that generally get squashed. They got, particularly in the Democratic Party, what happened with Trump is a case study that should be studied by political scientists for years, and they probably don't even know exactly how to explain it even today. So looking at the more conventional situation with the Democratic Party, we saw candidates with fresh new ideas who were outsiders to the whole machine get squashed. And now it's something that, I'm not saying that we need to throw these accusations at the PNM right away just because, but it's something that we should be aware of, not just for one party, but for all parties. Something to be informed voters to carry in the back of our minds. We have a caller from St. James. Good morning, caller.
Probably Karen could sort of clarify for me. Gary Griffith is on the list of, possible COP again. Now, he also has this political party. The other aspect is that Prime Minister already mentioned that he has no confidence in Gary Griffith. Two questions arise. Is Gary Griffith really serious to believe that he will be successful? If he's successful, just if, what will become of his party? I don't know if you could probably throw some light on that for me, please. Thank you.
I was hard to hear what you were saying. It had something to do with Gary.
Yes, Gary, he is on the current list of nominees for commissioner again, right? And apparently he is perceived to be placed quite highly. So the question is he taking this seriously because he's the leader of a political party that was launched? And if he is taking the appointment of Commissioner of Police seriously, what would happen to his party?
Well, I think he's taking it seriously because it really gives him an opportunity if he is eventually selected, because the term of office is 3 years and we have 3 more years of government. So that during this period of time, it gives him an opportunity to build up the confidence and trust that he has the leadership capacity. So that I don't see that being a issue for him. I think he sees as a good dress rehearsal for him if he's chosen,
because
and it will help his party.
The general is more than 3 years away.
Right, and usually these contracts are 3 years, so it would give him a great opportunity if he was selected to show that he's serious about crime and dealing with crime, and he's not in the back pockets of any politician, and that he is willing to make the change that people are asking for. So I don't see what he's doing inconsistent. In fact, I believe he's keeping himself on the front line, and he's challenging by judicial review. If they refuse to say who is it that made those decisions to investigate him without giving him an opportunity to be heard. And that was the key issue he's putting forward. So I don't see it as a problem for him at all. I think he's smart, he knows what he's doing.
I know we not too long ago got and lost a caller, if you could hear me. If it's not something to do with your connectivity, please call back. With regards to Gary Griffith, I actually do wonder, though, if he might be biting off more than he could chew, given the current state of crime and the situation that the government finds itself in. I hope that he doesn't promise more than he could deliver, because ironically, in the past, a lot of our callers, I thought, were quite supportive of what he did as Commissioner of Police. But then this week, I believe, or it might have been just yesterday, a lot of the callers were actually quite critical and did not necessarily think highly of him. So now if he takes up the post and potentially, if perception moves against him, it might be a risk that's not worth taking. But who knows? At the end of the day, he sold himself very well last time, and he might be able to do it again, whatever the statistics are.
So it's all politics, you know that. They have people calling in. You know how it goes. So I'm not going to take too much to that.
Well, I mean, time is drawing near, folks. If anybody calls in, we could take one more call at the very least. Please call in. I must say, I am surprised of all days, because the last time the professor missed a day, it also was a Wednesday when Karen was on, and he had stuff that he wanted to say to Karen. So the irony, of course, is incredible that the professor might have missed today as well. But Karen, I know, as incredulous as it might seem, he has come out and supported your candidacy on more than one occasion. I do believe that he has high hopes and expectations for you, despite having disagreements with you. And I think
that's healthy, isn't it?
Yes, for healthy democracy.
That's what a democracy is about. It's really about, you want everybody to follow you like the emperor without no clothes on?
Exactly.
No, that could never work. Then if you want that, then you don't really want a democracy. He's healthy and he's an intelligent man, and he has every right to put forward his views. I think that if he feels that I am the right candidate, he feels that I'm open to making the change. So thank you for your endorsement, and I understand you are perfectly right to ask questions, and that's what a democracy is supposed to be about.
I mean, one of the other things, Karen, I guess as time is ticking down here, I do want to ask this question. I'm not sure if you've even allowed yourself to think this far ahead, but what if you do win, and now you inherit a Trinidad and Tobago who is in... I will refrain from that question. We have a caller from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, guys. Guys, yeah, in case Keaton is there, Karen and Sean.
It's all right.
Good morning, thanks. I am so annoyed about the nonsense spoken by Mr. James and his justification for the destruction of the beach and harm to the ecosystem in Tobago. All the creatures that live there, for them to build a carnival stage. They could find nowhere else in Tobago to do this. So this Minister of Infrastructure, Trevor James, he was in the nepotism thing the other day, remember? He said, I'm not aware that we needed a CEC. certificate of clearance, of course. I mean, seriously, and the EMA is a state agency, so if they say we need a EC, then we need it. So he thought it was okay for him to just go and destroy the beach, to wine and jam, and that was tourism. But here's the other thing. Folly Augustine, I'm going now, was relying on him. But Folly Augustine in turn said, where that stage is being built now was once land, dry ground. The assessment was done, so we know that the environmental impact is little to none there. Well, I will have to say to Mr. Augustine what my brother tells his 30 UE students. Walk into RIK and buy a book on nature and wildlife, or ask a 6-year-old the meaning of the word environment. Sean and Keaton, glad to see the yang is here. We're still missing the yin. Keaton, rest up. See you soon. I share your pain, because we too have no water. Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you, caller. Well, we have to take a short break, and when we return, we'll wrap up with Mrs. Nunes Teixeira. Don't call her that, call her Karen. We'll be right back here on WESN, your content capital. Stay tuned.
Come travel with us as we explore Diwali across the globe. Diwali is celebrated in many countries worldwide, but do you know the traditions and practices of each nation? From Guyana to Australia, WESN presents Diwali Passport, October 3rd to October 23rd, with replays on October 24th. It's Diwali Passport, a WESN exclusive.
We're back here, Talking Point, folks. The last couple of minutes, want to thank all of those who called today. Professor, I'm quite surprised you did not get the opportunity to speak to the good lady herself, but it is what it is. Karen, thank you for coming here today and holding down the fort with me since Keaton couldn't make it. And also, I did not realize that there were two different deals with regards to Mr. Nelson, and it brings further clarity to the situation. I want to thank you for that as one of the preeminent legal minds of TNT today.
Oh, dear. That's very kind of you, and I'm glad that I got the chance to be on the show today. And I think, Sean, you contributed a lot in bringing clarity to issues and also making people, making people understand what is at stake. So I appreciate that a lot. And I think we're growing to the end, so I know I have to let you give your usual greetings, but I look forward to people's support. And remember, it's not about Karen Teixeira, it's about your country.
And folks, that is more or less what I want to sum it up. At the end of the day, as my coach would say, today is a good day to be a good day. How do we make it so, however? And I think we need to put aside the division, whether it is by party, whether it is by race, by geographical area, by socioeconomic status. We need to remember some of the principles built into our own imagery of our own national iconography. One of those things is very simple. It's on the coat of arms. Together we aspire, together we achieve. We are, at the end of the day, one nation.
Well put.
I leave you with that, folks. We will see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.